Hello, everyone. Welcome to this next webinar for the Simplex Group. Today, we're going to be going over Amazon Relay Unlocked, really talking about how important compliance is to secure your loads, whether you're with Amazon or you're loading with anybody else. Just some housekeeping before we get started. This webinar is not affiliated or endorsed by Amazon. We are just providing some informational and educational info, pretty much based off of experiences that we've had with some of our customers that have gone through some of these experiences and where we help them on the compliance side. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. A little bit about Simplex Group. Simplex Group, we've been in business for 24 years now. We really pride ourselves in serving thousands of companies, of trucking companies of all different kinds of sizes. We really try to focus on alleviating the burden that a lot of trucking companies have, especially focused around all things compliance, whether it's with complying with like FMCSA regulations or DOT regulations, or anything that has to do with permitting, whether it's federal or state. And we also help with insurance coverage, making sure you have the right coverage for your trucking company. And so we really focus on making sure it's simple for you and it's easy for you so you can focus on growing your business and more on your loads and your operations. So with that said, I'm Inali Baez. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Simplex Group. I've been in the industry for about 10 years now, even though, you count all the years before that where I grew up in a trucking family, it's definitely a lot more than that. And I got most of my experience working for a large trucking operation, about 150 trucks. And that's where I really got to see the ins and outs of a trucking company and how much and how difficult it is to run one. I really commend anyone in trucking because it's an extremely hard job with a lot of different hats where you really have to worry about, loads and making revenue and keeping your costs down and a volatile market as well. And so really commend you guys for that. And I have a true love and appreciation for this industry. And I know Gabriel has as well. So if you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your experience.
Thank you, Unity. I'm Gabriel Gonzalez, Chief Revenue Officer here at Simplex Group. I've been with the company for over 20 years, so almost half my life. I won't disclose my age though. I've worked with many carriers and owner-operators throughout my time here at Simplex, helping them navigate through compliance, safety, and growth opportunities. I truly believe that the Amazon Relay program is a huge opportunity for carriers coming into the business, as well as those wanting to grow within the business, but they need to understand that compliance is key. That's why we're excited to be here today and walking through the key requirements.
Awesome. So why did we put this webinar together? And like I mentioned earlier, we've had a lot of customers contacting us about Amazon and especially with their compliance thresholds, right? And we'll go over that in more detail later on. But we've had a lot of customers ask us, well, if I'm compliant with the FMCSA, am I compliant with Amazon standards, right? And so we'll go over that because we want to make sure that you guys are best equipped to get the freight that you need. Again, whether it's with Amazon or whether it's with any broker, compliance plays a huge role in securing freight. And a lot of people don't realize that, but it's basically how, companies rate you. These like brokers and stuff, they rate you based off of how good your compliance is, and you end up getting preferred loads and better relationships through that. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Again, it's going to be much more on an informational, educational perspective on the DOT compliance piece in particular. If you guys have any specific Amazon questions, we encourage you to go to their website. They're the best source for Amazon specific questions. So you can go to their website, their FAQs. They have a ton of great content, a ton of great information on there for you guys to take a look at. So let's talk a little bit about Amazon Relay, but even talking more in general, we know you guys are in a tough market. It's crazy how over the last few years, the freight market has been challenging. Usually we see it go into cycles, right? Where there's good times and then there's low times. And now we're just, steady, waiting for
Cycle.
waiting for that cycle to kind of come back up again, which I'm sure it will. We just know it's extremely challenging, and so we want to be able to educate you guys that there's still potential for growth out there. You just kind of have to take care of your company and take care of your compliance, and so um, a lot of the ways that you can make the best money, right, or be more steady or have more consistent rates is by having contracts, right? Which we know those are difficult to get, which is why your reputation is so important. And brokers have actually moved more towards having their own load boards as well. So now you don't have just DAT and Internet Truck Stop, but each broker, at least each major broker, has their own load board as well to give access to freight. So building relationships with them is extremely important to get better freight than is out there in the spot market, because a lot of people say, no, I just focus on the spot market, right? And then that's where you're going to end up seeing the most volatility. Yeah, because in the good times, freight is extremely good, and everyone wants to be on the spot market. But in times like these, in the low times, you really see kind of what we call the leftovers, right? That everything that the brokers couldn't load, they put it onto the spot market. And so that's where having a program like Amazon Relay can really help you in these tough times. Find something, yeah, maybe not as steady as contract freight, but maybe not as volatile as the spot market. And so it could really help you have a little bit more planning, a little bit more consistency, a little more stability as well in your freight, right, and your revenue. But even though, obviously the Amazon program is amazing, just like, any other program with a broker, we do encourage you not to put all your eggs in one basket. A lot of times we'll see carriers be like, no, I'm just going to load with CH Robinson, right? Or I'm just going to load with TQL. And then that could pose a risk for their company as well. So we do encourage you guys to really focus on building good relationships with your brokers, and with through platforms like Amazon Relay to make sure you diversify a little bit your kind of like your loading portfolio, right? So that's key for Amazon. So what I'm hearing is that it's a really easy process to be able to apply for Amazon Relay. So Gable, do you mind sharing what are the steps that someone needs to take to be able to start using the Amazon Relay app and loading with them?
Yeah, so Inalia did a great job presenting the benefits. I'm going to talk about the requirements. First, you're going to need an active DOT and MC number with at least 180 days. You're going to have a classification of for hire carrier authorized to transport property. You're going to have to maintain a safety score with the FMCSA of satisfactory, not rated, or no rated. Now, for those of you coming into the industry for the first time and not understanding the terminology, no rating means you haven't been audited by the FMCSA, while not rated means they completed a focused review, which only focuses on the deficient areas, but it's not a full compliance review, which leads to a result of a satisfactory if you pass with no issues. You'll also need to maintain your basic scores under the Amazon threshold. Now, keep in mind, the Amazon threshold is stricter than the FMCSA threshold, and Enely will provide more details shortly on that. You also have to meet the Amazon Relay Program insurance requirements, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. And your drivers need to complete and pass a background check in order to qualify for the Amazon Relay Program. Now, if you fail any of these, your application will probably be denied and you'll be able to fix the issue and you'll be able to reapply for the program. Keep in mind the compliance is key. If your compliance scores are already high to begin with, I would advise not to even apply until you bring your scores down, because they'll automatically deny the application process.
Awesome. So this is going to be the kind of the meat and potatoes of our webinar today, is really focusing on the basics and then also talking a little bit about insurance. And so just to kind of give a little bit of background, I'm sure you guys all know a lot about the FMCSA and basic scores, but in a simple term, I like to think about your basics and your safety score like a report card, right? Like when you're in school, if you have kids, like they bring home a report card, you kind of know how they're doing, right? And that's kind of how I like to think about these basic scores, right? These brokers or Amazon doesn't know you, right? They don't know your behaviors over the road. Like they don't know you as a person, that you're trying your best, right? So this is the reflection of what they can see. Not even freight brokers, insurance companies, right? Like insurance companies really look at this when they're underwriting you to find the best risk, to kind of assess your risk to see, how they price you. So your report card, if you will, is your reputation out there. And so how do these scores get calculated? They get calculated by taking things like crashes, inspections with violations, and safety investigations, and all of these different activities go into your calculation. And the more recent the violation, for example, the heavier weight it is, right? Or the bigger impact it's going to have on your safety score. And besides that, there's the time, but then there's also severity. And the more severe they categorize a certain violation, again, the more impact it's going to have on your safety score. Now, something to keep in mind is that for the basic scores, um, you are compared against similar trucking companies of your size, right? So we all know like a 100 truck company is not going to be the same as a one truck company. The FMCA expects the trucking company with 100 trucks to have more violations, right, than the one with one truck. So something to keep in mind is, you are compared in kind of like, a similar bracket, right? But all these different things ends up being, a train of events, right, that really affect your safety score and really affect your insurance at the end, your ability to get freight. And that's that, each time you get these inspections with violations, it could end up triggering passing a threshold. And when you pass that threshold, then you get an alert. And then after you get an alert, your safety score goes up. The higher the safety score, the more you're going to get stopped, the more likely you are to get audited, right? And then at that point, you could potentially fail an audit. There's a lot of things that can happen. Your insurance premiums can go up. So I like to think about it like a ripple effect. What you're doing on a daily basis is going to affect your scores and how they see you. So they are 7 basics, or 7 different categories, right? For the basics. And 2 of them are not public, and the other 5 are. But we have unsafe driving, we have the crash indicator, famous hours of service compliance, vehicle maintenance, the controlled substance abuse, and then hazmat and driver fitness. I would say the 2 that we see more across the board or more likely to have violations or alerts is under vehicle maintenance and hours of service. And Gabriel's going to actually cover some tips around how to keep those under the threshold. The other thing I kind of want to mention for your scores and what goes into the calculation of those scores is something really important is to keep your FMCSA account up to date. Making sure that you have your miles in there properly and the number of trucks, specifically your driver, right? Have all of that, your commodities, all of that is extremely important because it all goes into, again, setting you in those different categories like I had talked about. And then also, again, when you're going to renew your insurance, that's a piece of it as well. And so that's kind of a tip or something that we recommend. And we can definitely help you with that if you've never done it or you're not really sure how to do it. Simplex can definitely help you with that. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between the FMCSA basics and the Amazon Relay basics. And so Gabriel mentioned it, right? It's 5% lower. So they have, according to Amazon, they have a stricter standard for people hauling their freight. And so, for example, we'll just take unsafe driving, which is the first one. The FMCSA threshold is at 65%. And Amazon Relay is at 60%, right? So what do these percentages mean? Just kind of think about it like a ranking, right? So in your category, right, and in your grouping of similar companies like yours, do you want to be in the 65%, right, where you're better, or in this case, higher is worse, right? So if you're at 70%, you're past the threshold. And so that means that 70% of companies operate safer than you do, right? So that's kind of how to think about it from a scale from 0 to 100 on those different thresholds. So that's really important to keep in mind, is that Amazon's is lower, and that's where making sure that and by the way, they only check 5 of the 7. So crash indicator and the hazardous materials, they are not taking that into account right now. So you definitely still have to keep, if in those categories, like, be compliant with the FMCSA to make sure that you don't hit those other thresholds. But for Amazon, they're taking into account unsafe driving, hours of service, vehicle maintenance, controlled substances and alcohol, and then also the driver fitness. And so we have actually had a lot of people ask us, well, if I comply with FMCSA, even if I comply with this 5% threshold, is Amazon going to still look at me like a good carrier, right, or a good person? So the answer is actually no. They have even more things that they track other than the FMCSA compliance piece or the 5% under. They rank you in a bunch of different items, and when you go into your Relay app, you can see what's happening there. And they check this on a monthly basis. And so they also look at your acceptance rate. So how are you accepting the loads? They look at your cancellation rates. Are you canceling, your loads? And then they also really take into account on time, right? Are you being on time to your deliveries? So all these different factors, if you will, go into your Amazon performance calculation. And so you'll have visibility to that. And that's how they rank you, give you rewards, and give you load priorities as well. So the higher you rank in Amazon, the better opportunities you're going to have to be able to work with them. Now, whether you work with Amazon or not, you have to abide by the FMCSA regulations. So it's important to be able to keep that in mind. So that's kind of the textbook version, right, of what basics are, what safety scores are, what they mean, right, and what they mean in terms of Amazon. But I really think the most important part is, how do you put that into action, right? So okay, I understand how it works. I understand what I need to deliver, but then how do I do it, right? And you've been doing this for 20 years, like you said. So you've had a lot of experience with all sorts of carriers and working with a bunch of different ones. So maybe if you can share some tips and tricks on how to protect those scores.
Yeah, you basically said it. Getting into the Amazon Rebate program is one thing, but staying eligible is what truly matters in this program. And we can be here for hours talking about compliance, because the FMCSA does put a lot on carriers. I will just focus on some of the best practices that I would recommend to the carriers that I've dealt with in the past. Number one, understanding the FMCSA regulations, not depending on somebody else, to and more importantly, not learning as you go, like making mistakes and not enrolling in a random drug testing program and getting penalized for it. And then that's how you learn that you needed to be involved in a random drug testing program. Being proactive. I mean, to me, this is the most important. Being on top of your safety scores, checking them on a monthly basis, taking action from the onset. Being involved with a company like Simplex Group or somebody that specializes in safety from the beginning. What I've noticed is a lot of carriers come to us reacting to something. They already got an alert, they already got involved in a huge accident, and now they're reacting and coming to us. And yeah, we can definitely put a program in place and help them out, but they're already taking a step back. Preventive maintenance program is huge, as you mentioned. Vehicle maintenance and hours of service are two of the key issues that a lot of carriers have on the road. Having a good preventive maintenance program, following a good schedule. To me, the most important piece is the pre and post trip inspection. You as a truck owner, if you own the company, or you as a driver, understanding how to complete a proper pre and post trip inspection, being able to identify an issue before you take off on the road, is going to save you a lot of headaches. It's going to save you a violation, or it's going to save you from possibly being put out of service, and now you're not going to be on time to a delivery, which obviously affects your performance metrics. Um, I'm also big on hours of service, knowing your hours of service regulations, working with a reputable ELD provider, one that you can depend on, that the device is not going to cause you any issues. Taking advantage of the features like the driver behavior feature that a lot of these ELD providers have, including us here at Simplex Group. Um, and then for those of you that are hiring drivers, but more importantly, those of you that want to grow in this business, which hopefully a lot of you do, the driver onboarding is key. Number one, I always say, run the MVR, make sure the driver is approved by the insurance company before you even take the next step. A lot of companies will send the driver to get processed, do a pre-employment drug test, spend money, then run an MVR, realize that the driver doesn't qualify with the insurance. So to me, running the MVR is key, followed by completing that pre-employment drug test, making sure you have it in hand with a negative result before dispatching that driver, having that driver complete a driver application, completing the previous employer verification to know if that driver had any issues in the past with the companies he's worked for, making sure that the driver's enrolled in the clearinghouse and running a clearinghouse query to eliminate any substance abuse possibilities. And this one, I highly recommend. It's not required by the FMCSA, but running a PSP. The PSP gives you a historical on the drivers. It keeps track of 5 years of accident history, and it keeps track of all the inspections and violations over the last 3 years. So it allows you to make an educated decision when hiring a driver. Do you want to take a chance on a driver that you see has several violations over the years? Is it a driver that has a few violations here and there, and maybe training will help him and you can take him on, but knowing that you're going to have to train him before you get him out on the road? Those to me are all keys. And if you do those consistently, you're more than likely going to keep your scores down.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the driver piece. Like, the drivers affect everything for a trucking company. And so, when you hire a driver, they're operating with your signs. Again, they affect your report card again. And so, they're not on their own. They can leave you the next day and go work for somebody else, but you're the one that stays with the violation. You're the one that stays with the accident. You're the one that stays with, all of the mess, right? That they came up with. So training your drivers is important. Not just when they get hired by you, right? And explaining your safety policies, right? How you want to operate, making sure, if you need a lease agreement, that you have it. So it's not just like on the onboarding piece, but we recommend that you do ongoing training with them as well, to make sure that, they're constantly hearing what's going on. And so that's something that we cannot stress more. And Gabriel said it, like, one of the simple things that you can do, which a lot of trucking companies, again, because you want to deliver that load, you're trying to make the most money, you want those wheels to be rolling, is that they end up not doing the pre-trip and post-trip. Well, what ends up happening and becomes a bigger issue, right? So maybe part of your driver onboarding, right, if you have a yard, or, if you're interviewing that driver face to face, have them perform one, right? See if they're doing it the right way, and if they know how to do it, and if they're experienced. Because once those signs are on the truck, they belong to you, right? And they're your responsibility. So that is the drivers that operate under you are so important into and really factor into your safety scores. And on top of that, like we mentioned before, it affects your insurance. And so Amazon does have different standards, but at the same time, all of your compliance affects, how much you're going to be paying for insurance. So can you maybe explain the differences between the FMCSA requirements and the Amazon Relay ones?
Sure. Well, before getting into the insurance, I just wanted to add to one of your points. One of the things that we've done in the past with carriers, and it's worked really well, are the mock roadside inspections. And that's where we can tell if they're performing good pre and post trip inspections. That's just an added tip. Find somebody that can perform a mock roadside inspection, so that your driver's property, I know what the inspector is going to look at when you're stopped at a scale house. Now, going back into the insurance, Amazon has, their requirements, and basically to be in the relay program, you'll need the $1 million in auto liability coverage. The FMCSA requires $750,000. But as you all know, that those that have experience and those that are coming into the industry, you'll learn now, most top shippers and brokers require 1 million, as does Amazon. You'll be required to have 100,000 in cargo coverage. That obviously protects Amazon's freight. You'll be required to have 50,000 in trailer interchange. That's basically physical damage coverage for traders you do not own, which in this case are Amazon's traders. You'll be required to have commercial general liability, 1 million per occurrence and 2 million general aggregate. Those of you, again, getting into the industry for the first time and are not familiar with general liability, it's basically a coverage that protects injury and property damage for non-driving related accidents. You'll also be required to have 100,000 in employee liability, and you'll be required to have workers' comp, depending on what state you're domiciled in and what the regulations are related to workers' comp in that state. Lastly, tying it all together, we're here talking about compliance. This is all about the Amazon Relay program. But in the end, compliance is not just about the Amazon Relay program. You see, that's how the FMCSA measures you. And more importantly, one of the biggest headaches carriers have is insurance. We know when you come in as a new venture, you're going to be paying a lot more money in insurance because, for the first 2 years you're in business, they're going to treat you as a new venture. But after 2 years, you have the possibility of your insurance premiums going down and paying less money. But that's also going to be based on your safety scores. So to Inari's point, that's why the safety scores are so important. It affects so many things.
Yeah, that's right. Which we already covered that, so we don't need to do that. So, I guess next steps, right? So you don't have to go through any of this alone, right? That's why Simplex is here. Simplex is here to help. And, again, whether it's us or whether, you're a learner fleet, you're hiring a safety manager and all that, please make sure to take care of your compliance. And we're happy to review that with you guys. So we have put a QR code here. If is to see if you're relay ready, right? We can review your scores with you. We can kind of advise some best courses of action as well. And so if you need help and you need some guidance, please feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for, and we want to make you guys succeed as well. So now we have our Q&A. So we got so many questions on the registration. So we thank you for that. But we do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer where we're giving informational based off of our experience, right, and on our compliance background. But again, if you need any specific Amazon type question, you need specific answers from Amazon, again, go straight to their website. We want to redirect you there because they're going to have the best information for Amazon specific questions. So I think we'll go over to the top 2 questions that we have for today. So do you want to?
Yeah. Our marketing director and guru, Jupazan, selected the questions. So if I didn't read your question, please don't blame it on Ine, all right? We'll get back to you with all your questions later. The first question, I only have 3 months with my MC US DOT. Would Amazon give me the opportunity to drive for them? Technically, you can apply before the 6 months, but they're not going to look at the application until you reach the 6-month mark. At that point, they'll approve or deny your application. So it doesn't hurt. I actually recommend you applying early, maybe on month 4 or 5, so that on month 6, your application is ready and ready to go. The second question, I just got my authority. Can I even get insurance Amazon asked for, and how expensive is it starting out? I don't want to go over actual insurance premium because they vary by state and there's a lot of factors that play into it. Obviously, if you're a new venture, insurance is going to be more expensive than somebody that's been 2 years in business, but you can definitely meet the requirements at Amazon. And even here at Simplex Group, we can help you fulfill all those requirements. So if you do need insurance, you can go to any insurance agent, or you can come to us here at Simplex Group and we'll be more than happy to help you.
Awesome. And by the way, I know we only got to 2 questions because we had 30 minutes for today. But after this webinar, you will be receiving an email with information from today's webinar. And then also we're going to be publishing like a frequently asked questions. So we'll take all of the questions that you guys either sent through the chat today or the ones that we received prior to registration. We're going to go ahead and publish those for you guys to have them as well. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. We're here to help you guys. And please remember to follow us on social media. On YouTube, we post a lot of great content, a lot of great videos like these, very educational. So please, check us out on YouTube, and this webinar will be on there as well. And then also on your regular social media platforms. Please follow us. And we're so excited to help you. We wish, if you guys are applying for Amazon Related, wish you the best of luck. And hope all goes well, and that, we're all here crossing our fingers that this industry turns around. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and week. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.